Jewish refugees from Germany, Austria, and Czechoslovakia fled to Britain before the outbreak of World War II to escape systematic persecution by the Nazi regime. By 1939, about 60,000 refugees managed to emigrate to the UK on domestic service visas, transit visas, as unaccompanied children on the Kindertransport, or through other forms of sponsorship. They were joined after 1945 by a small number of Jewish children and young adults who had survived the war in Nazi Europe, often without their family, in concentration camps, in hiding, or with false identities. Another wave of refugees, many of them Holocaust survivors, came to Britain from Hungary in 1956. Since 2002, the AJR Refugee Voices Archive has captured the testimony of more than 250 of these refugees and survivors. In these oral history interviews, the interviewees recall the stories of their families and their childhood homes in places like Berlin, Vienna, Prague, Krakow, Cologne, Frankfurt, Bamberg, Bratislava, Bonn, Budapest, Munich, Hamburg, and many more. They recall their life journeys and the many challenges they faced. They reflect on their often traumatic experiences of separation and displacement, and on their lives and achievements after the war. Some of the interviewees have been active Holocaust educators for many years. Some have never told their stories. Many interviewees who have given their testimony to the AJR Refugee Voices Archive are not alive anymore. This film captures the reflections, messages, and hopes of the refugees and survivors in the United Kingdom who wanted their words and voices to be heard, and who wanted future generations to reflect on the legacy of their testimonies.
My message would be, think of the past and don't let it become the future.
I'm not one to advise people. There are lots of wiser people about, but I think don't look back, just look forward and make the best of every day and be thankful of what you've got and be thankful to be there. And let's hope it's going to be a better world and we won't be struck with any more dreadful things. It's a very different world we live in now. Very interesting to live for as long as you can to see what will happen.
The message I can think of is the whole reason why we have this interview is to let future generations know what kind of life we had, so that they should have a better life and should not have to suffer for all the traumas we had to suffer.
People have got to know what it was all about, because once it's swept under the carpet, it will be forgotten.
Yes, it's hard to go back.
To speak about difficult things is the only way to get through. And to open up these things is the only way, really, to save generation after generation.
If one tries to be rational, I was burgled from an early age, if you like. First they stole my childhood, then they stole my possessions, then they murdered my parents. I mean, this must affect your whole being, your whole attitude, your whole everything.
My life, I found that there's been a lot of difficulty and hardship in my life and hard work and everything else. But I have learned from everything. And I think in the long run, it stood me in good stead. I really don't regret any periods of my life or feel hard done by or whatever. And that is the honest truth.
Went to Vienna to put these stones down for my grandfather and my mother, Elsa and Leopold. And I thought I could move on, but time has shown me that I still have that stone in my shoe.
Some unpleasant things can happen to you, but how you deal with them is in your hands. How you deal with what is given to you, which may be beyond your control. How you deal with it is entirely up to you. And it's your life, it's your responsibility. That's what I would tell my kids. That's what I would tell my grandchildren. You can't have everything you want. Doesn't mean to say you can't dream. But accept reality courageously. Don't recoil. Don't step back. Say yes to life.
To learn to accept people as they are and respect the individual, not try to change them or treat them in a particular way because that's their station in life. It doesn't work like that. Everybody's an individual. And it doesn't matter whether they actually agree with you on something or not. You have to interact and treat them as human beings. I think that's the basic building block of society. If you don't do that, then eventually you run into the sort of trouble that we did.
Only to try to think of other people as individuals and not to think of people en masse, not to stereotype, because there is such a thing as mob mentality. And it can lead to dreadful things. And
I wish anti-Semitism was over and people learned from what has happened in the Holocaust, etc. I hope it never reoccurs.
I would say be very careful of any prejudice. Always treat everybody, of whatever their color, their culture, their faith, whatever, however different of somebody else is, if they're different from you, they are still a human being. You have to just learn what happened in Hitler's Germany. Please, please learn from that. Just don't even begin to think of anybody else as the other.
Hope that people learn to live with each other. If I look down from somewhere and see what's going on after my time has come, then I'll watch out and see how much of that has improved. But it'll take generations. It will take generations. I have no illusions about that.
For the future, listen to what the likes of us have had to say, draw your own conclusions, But remember that this is not just a project about telling the stories of unhappiness and loss, but they should also be stories about gains and about the lessons that have been learned that can be applied for a future which will create more stable, better lives and bring people together rather than separate them.